This is Frank Skinner. This is
Absolute Radio.
Hello, this is the Frank Skinner Show with Emily Dean and Helen Cochran. We are, I think I said Helen Cochran then. You know what? Yeah, his sister's turned up. We are not live, by the way. We're not live, so don't text the show. But you can follow us at Frank on the Radio on Twitter and Instagram, or you can email us via the Absolute Radio website, that old favourite. So hello, guys. How are you feeling?
Hello.
I feel like Helen.
Well, it's because I don't know if that that side of the medical business is still operating.
That's a good question. It seems less important now, doesn't it?
Everything apart from survival seems less important.
Indeed.
I guess.
So that's all gone a bit Bear Grylls. Can I just apologise in advance if you can hear the clanking of bottles? I haven't turned to the booze. That is my neighbour doing the recycling. I'm not.
Oh, okay. How lovely that we can hear your neighbour doing the recycling. Again, what's the point? Not now, Greta. Not now.
Yeah.
And now here's the thing. I don't want to bring things down, but I got up the other morning and my 7-year-old son Boz was in tears on the sofa, and I thought, oh no, what's happened? And he said, look, I had the worst nightmare ever last night. I woke
Was he
up.
watching you on the Brits?
And no, that's banned. He said, no, that was when I had the worst nightmare ever. He said, I woke up at 2:15 a.m. I was so upset by the nightmare. I never got back to sleep. I just lay there, and he was really, really upset. And I put my arm around him and I said, look, it's just a nightmare. Tell me what it was about. And then he started laughing and said, April Fool.
Oh, excellent.
And I said to him, that's quite a cruel one, isn't it? I thought,
I can't think where he would have picked that up off. I mean,
no, exactly.
He's learned from the best, Frank.
I mean, especially in the current climate, I thought it was a really dark. Anyway, it was a bit.
I'm impressed.
What's that number 9 thing called?
Inside Number 9.
Number 9. Yes, it was a bit like that. It was an opening to the day like that.
Did you decide? So the April Fool, which our regular readers will be familiar with some of Frank's greatest hits on April the 1st.
Oh, yeah.
There was the time when you said to your mother-in-law, "Go for it, Frank." What did you remember? What you said?
Was that when the toilet had broken and was shooting water all over the bathroom floor?
Yes. You said the toilet had broken.
Also, my car's been stolen was another one. And perhaps the greatest of all, the one that nearly ended my relationship, was when I told my partner that I'd agreed to do a television show with Gok Wan, in which I walked around northern towns and cities dressed in avant-garde costumes, talking to people. And the title of it was, Why Are You Wearing That? And Kath said to me, you're not the person I thought you were, when I said I'd accepted it, and said, I don't think I can go out with you anymore. But we got over that. We'll get over this. All right?
Nice positive message in your...
I was going to say, boys, sorry, Frank, I noticed Coronation Street, they did an April Fool, didn't they? They pretended that it had been turned into a cartoon version of the show.
Good.
Well, is it? I mean, you don't want to be talking yourself out of work.
Good point.
I'd love to watch a cartoon version of Coronation Street. What a brilliant idea. You could bring back then all the dead people.
That's a good idea.
Oh, man.
Get John Culshaw involved.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, Albert Tatlock.
I'm serious. I would love to watch that. And you could see Ina Sharples in colour, which would have been a new thing for me, except I did have a Coronation Street jigsaw, which featured a tableau from the Rover's Return, which had, Martha Longhurst and Ina Sharples and Minnie Caldwell. These we have loved.
And Al, of course, Frank.
Tableaus in history.
And Al.
Al, of course, Al was in it. Yeah, let's not forget that. I'm proud to be on the same show. I've only ever done Emmerdale myself, which, let's face it, it's not the same. Yeah, I was only as a voice.
That's
which
cool.
I mean,
that.
I might get the call when they did the cartoon version. They might ask me to be Annie Sogden.
Do you remember your line in Emmerdale? What did you say?
I think it was, it's not my sheep, Jeff.
Frank Skinner on
Absolute Radio.
By the way, speaking of my 7-year-old son, he told me that the coronavirus came from a bat biting a chicken, and then somebody ate that chicken. Is this? I've then been telling lots of people that origin story without doing any fact check at all.
I thought it was from a human eating a raw bat at what they call a wet market in China, where you can buy lots of
raw bat.
Oh,
yeah,
sorry,
I think
that was
it
me.
Half cooked. Either
Well,
that or
Ozzy
a
Osbourne,
pangolin, they think.
Yes,
What?
Ozzy Osbourne.
Ozzy
He ate
Osbourne.
bats.
He bit a rat on. He bit the head off a bat on stage.
Yeah,
I remember.
I think that was. I mean, I don't want to burst any bubbles, but I think that might have been the magic of theatre.
Oh, I think it was the magic of heroin.
Yes.
I have to say the phrase "the magic of heroin" is not one you hear very often. Well, not I don't know. There
Unless you're
probably
in
are.
Pete Doherty's house.
There probably are places, the county line houses. where
Is
it's said
he
a
in the
lot.
heroin chair, Pete Doherty? I don't know if he is anymore.
I'd like to think he's cleaned up his act.
Oh,
but
yes, he
I
has.
Oh, yeah,
I've
but
no
Apologies,
idea.
Pete.
You meant as a shorthand for who?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I say, I think I would advise in a pre-recorded show not to do any stuff about Pete Doherty during a major pandemic.
Yes.
In fact, anyone. Yeah, so it's... I'll tell you another thing I've had is that we've been using the freezer a bit more, what with our panic buying.
Oh, have you done a lot
really.
of panic buying?
No, I haven't done it. I'm anti-panic buying, but we have like a thing like a fish delivery where a man comes with a box of fish,
Oh, that's
and
nice.
you can't eat like 8 pieces of fish in 2 days. Well, you could do, but it's not a contest.
If you were an
So
Eskimo.
we've been freezing it. How many words have they got for fish?
An awful lot, I think.
Yes.
They got a lot for twine, fishing twine.
Yeah. Snow, that's a big one with these people.
Snow is there. Obviously, that's their
They
their
love
peak.
snow.
Yeah.
I wonder how many they've got for fur.
Good
Anyway,
point.
I have always been anti frozen food. It frightens me. And so all this stuff now has gone in the fridge, and I don't know if I have the courage to eat it because I've read so many different things about, like, if you put a lamb chop in a fridge, what you have to do with it
Oh, yeah.
before
Do you mean a freezer?
it's safe. In the freezer, rather, yeah.
Yeah. So
I always think, you hear all these stories of old people's homes having a chicken or a big turkey and then, all being very, very ill. And that's put me off.
Oh, yeah.
Here's what I think should happen for you, Frank, now, is that they were your previous fears, but now if you think of your fears in life as a leaderboard, COVID-19 has jumped to the top and everything else has been pushed down at least one place.
That
And
is true.
Your fear of frozen food might have slipped right off the leaderboard and you could just carry on and eat it like everybody else.
Al, I'm loving this. You sound like one of those inspirational gurus they make a documentary about on Netflix.
Well, that sounds good. It's a
No, but
fallback
that's a good
plan.
thing. That's a
Now
good
that,
thing.
now that comedy's gone.
Can I?
It's on pause.
It
Come
wasn't
on.
that bad a link. So, if I paraphrase you, what you're saying is, "Not now, Captain Birdseye."
Yes.
Frank Skinner on Absolute Radio.
We've heard from the outside world this week because we took the liberty of posting up pictures of our home studio setups from last week. And yours has
Well, I was
caused
told.
a little...
I was told I had to.
Yes. We've got feedback on all of our home studio setups, but yours has caused a little bit of fuss, Frank, because I don't know if you remember, maybe you're in the same system today, but you had a laptop balanced on a linen basket.
That's correct.
And your selfie had a huge stack of books in the background, and some scamp, Robert B. Brain, has said no way to treat books unless you've just moved in which case I apologise.
Okay.
Oh, my word.
He's calling
I
you
don't
out.
know why, but stacking books is not a bad way to treat books, is it?
Yeah, I mean, I thought,
No.
when I saw it, I just thought, oh, he's so learned. His background is books. That's what I thought.
Well, you know what? I didn't do what you're supposed to do with when you're on like Sky News talking about something on Skype.
Oh, yeah.
You're supposed to always put the history of Western philosophy by Bertrand Russell
Yes.
behind you.
Yes.
And I didn't rearrange my books, so I realised there's things like a Pep Guardiola biography and stuff in the background, which is not what I'm trying to project, to be honest.
Well, it's troubling times in that respect, because I noticed I had a terrible book on my shelves, Frank. I didn't know I still had it. Paul Burrell, Diana, Her True Story.
Oh,
Excellent.
wow.
I mean, come on. You don't want to still be having that loitering on the shelves. Gossiping butlers.
He was not a man to leave things loitering on her shelves. Ever. I know.
Paul Burrell moment ever was, do you remember him on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here? He put his hand into a crevice, and there were rats in there. And as he was pushing it out of the way, he said, "Come on, move over, darling." And he called the rat darling. It was sort of affectionate, and I loved it. Sorry, over to you, Frank Skinner, at the laundry basket.
Yeah, I noticed, and it's weird, when I took the photo, it didn't actually occur to me what was over my shoulder. And that is so naive, because whenever I see anyone at home, all I look at is what's over their shoulder in their house. And people did some great spotting. They actually spotted I've got a poster from Doctor Who's Mommy on the Orient Express on my wall, which was the one episode I was in, of course. And they also... I mean, I looked at this and I thought they've got a better quality a phone picture than me. They spotted the Master's TARDIS.
That's right.
From Roger Delgado era. I'm
we've
not
all got one
ashamed
of those,
of that.
dear.
Oh, yeah, well, I should think so, obviously.
You're
But
not
mine just
ashamed of
happened
it?
to be... no, I'm definitely not ashamed of it.
Well, if they came to my gaff, they would spot a model of the pirate captain.
Oh, yes.
Frank bought me. I do have that on display, Frank.
What figurines from Doctor Who do you have, Alan?
Is there an episode with the Invisible Doctor? I've got that guy.
There are episodes with invisible creatures. Certainly.
Yeah, I've got those.
If there is one, I can guarantee some monster with bad skin will be saying, "Parimata eliminated."
Is it Planet of the Daleks when Joe Grant goes into the jungle, speaking into a
Yes,
dictaphone?
that's the one,
and
Frank.
There's
Yep.
invisible people. Yeah, I thought, thanks for. I knew you guys would know. I didn't want to make a fool of myself.
Frank Skinner on Absolute Radio.
That was a piece of music I can't identify because I'm not really involved in the music anymore. I'm not getting my choices. You know, when I choose my own music on this show, 2 an hour, gone during the current crisis. I mean, I miss it. I know
Not one of the big headlines of the COVID-19 pandemic, though, is it?
No, I know Absolute have been trying to get rid of my choices for basically since I signed up, and it took this for them to get their own way. But I miss it. I think I look forward to my choices in particular. But you know, I would do. I suppose they're my choices.
I'd rather miss your choices. Who'd have
Yeah, me
thought?
too.
We've also had a comment. We were talking in the last link, Frank, about your home, essentially, and people commenting on the various aspects of it. And do you remember you posted a video of you working out to Joe Wicks last week on Instagram? And Cashmano75, his comment on this video was, that door has been cut down a bit too much. You'll get a terrible draft coming under there. And then they decided to have a whole conversation. Disco Shippers said, I can only think there was a carpet there before. I guess you could join a piece to it. He'd need a decent chippy mind.
I love that.
Is the gap at the top of the door or the bottom?
It's at the bottom, apparently.
It's weird because we just had the kitchen done, and I believe that they tiled on top of the previous tile, so the floor has gone up a bit. Doesn't make any sense. Anyway, I haven't noticed the draft.
Frank Leoffer has also commented regarding your workout video. It reminds me of one of those Third Reich training films with 50 people in a field practicing.
Well, I don't know about that. I love the Soviet Russian ones when people did those giant PE lessons outdoors.
Yeah.
It's one of the things I miss about the Soviet Union.
It's very incentivising for the workout to think that you might be killed if you don't do your bunny hops or whatever, I just think.
Yeah, I don't get that kind of menace from Joe Wicks.
Yes, he's much more chummy, isn't he?
He was dressed as... He ended the week with Fancy Dress Friday.
Did he?
Did he?
Wicks.
What did he dress up as?
He did the whole thing as Spider-Man.
That's good.
By the way, did you hear one of my alerts then?
No.
I tried to switch off my alerts, but I can't work it out. It doesn't matter.
What was it? Was it Doctor Who alert?
No, I can't see what it was. I just heard a beep. It could have been anything.
Okay.
I read a marvellous thing in the Roman Catholic press this week.
Is that
in
the
Catholic Herald. Well, I read the Catholic Herald as well.
Oh.
Is that online?
I don't know if it's online.
The tablet.
You can get it. I have it delivered.
Thank you very much.
The Catholic Herald was talking about the fact that due to the current crisis, people have been kept away from Stonehenge. And it was, I think, the spring solstice last week.
Right.
And so the Druids weren't able to worship it. Obviously, it's a big thing for the Druids. Any solstice. They love a solstice, the Druids. And that is one of their key places to go is in Stonehenge. So they said, we're not the only ones who can't worship at the moment. The Druids have been banned from Stonehenge. And they had a quote from the head of the Tottenham branch of the Druids. I don't know if he was joking or not, but he said, he said it's really upsetting. He said, but the thing is, he said, we have to make sacrifices.
Frank Skinner.
Absolute Radio.
So I went out this week, obviously for what do they call it? An imperative journey.
All right.
Yes.
Is that the term?
I've been calling it government-mandated exercise.
Okay. No. I had to go somewhere to get something important, and so I think I've added the word imperative. I don't think that's cropped up during the whole crisis, but I like it. And for the first time, I wore a mask.
Did you?
A proper, double elastic white mask.
Was it what they call an N95 mask? I've learned so much during this crisis.
No, I haven't heard of an
like the sound of
N95.
those.
Yeah.
What are those ones
the same
now?
articles I've been reading. I think it's
Are
just
those the ones with the slight sort of bit, almost duck's bill? Those type of masks?
Maybe. I mean,
It's
I'm
got
not
a
a mask
metal-
expert.
Mine has got a metal grip on the top, a la Robbie Fowler. You know that plaster that Robbie Fowler used to have across the bridge of his nose?
Yes.
I think the idea that you can close the top of the mask tight to your nose, so if saliva is raining down from taller citizens, it doesn't get in. It's a bit, I don't want to end up like that gap above my door. So I put my mask on.
And I believe Stephen Merchant's local to you as well.
Well, exactly. I was out with my mask on, and the first thing I realised is what I've been doing. I've been getting very lax optically, in that I don't wear contact lenses most days now. If you're not going anywhere, you might as well just put your specs on. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But if you wear your mask and specs, the specs really steam up because the breath is coming up past your Robbie Fowler, getting in behind the... And I couldn't see it. In the end, I had to take my spectacles off, and I thought I can see better short-sighted than I can through this terrible mist. So that was my first problem. And then I realised my phone went, a text or an email or something, and my facial recognition doesn't operate when I've got an anti-pandemic mask on.
Good point.
Oh.
So I had to keep putting my... It's that terrible moral dilemma. Do I raise my mask and risk everything, or do I go through the tedious business of putting in my password? So I had to keep putting in my password. But perhaps the strangest mask-based experience I had was that I got a bit of mask envy.
Yeah.
I passed some people who got really, some proper, sturdy, industrial, pseudo-military looking masks. Things. Really? I saw a woman who had one on. Do you remember that Woody Allen film, Sleeper?
Yeah.
Yes.
There's a mask he wears in that, and it looked a lot like that. And I thought, oh man, I wish I had that mask. So I'm going to start looking into... I'd like to get a real beauty, because we're going to be wearing it for, it's going to be months rather than weeks. Let's be honest.
A real beauty, Al.
Keeping up with the Joneses has changed, hasn't it?
It really has.
Seen the size of her mask next door?
There's going to be like mask fashion. People are going to say, oh no, everyone's wearing those black ones, or the ones with the dog muzzle on them, so they look like... So they look anthropomorphic. It will come. It will come. It will surely come.
This is Frank Skinner. This is
Absolute Radio.
This is Frank Skinner on Absolute Radio with Emily Dean and Alan Cochrane. We're not live. We're not. So don't text us. I insist you don't. But you can follow us at Frank on the Radio on Twitter and Instagram. And you can email us during via the Absolute Radio website. I've never done it worse. But it's fine. It's fine. I think, it doesn't matter now, does it? Doesn't matter. Bigger things,
We're all
bigger
make
fish
do
to
and
fry.
mend at the moment, dear.
This is no time for perfectionism.
I read an interesting piece of journalism this week. I think, again, it might have been in the Roman Catholic press, but somebody went to... They asked Terry Waite, who is 80 years old now.
Is he still with us?
Yeah, he's still with us.
Still alive?
They asked. Yeah, I think we've dropped that.
That particular.
Terry Waite. They asked him how he was coping in isolation, which I thought gave Terry Waite a chance to be such a Tony know-all.
Yes.
Because he said, well, I spent however many years it was in complete darkness, sleeping on a floor with nothing to read and nothing to write on. Hardly seen anyone from the outside world, so it's no problem to me. I thought, all right, Terry. Yeah. All right, man. We knew that. Don't beat us over the head with it.
Do you think Terry Waite has a similar feeling that you used to on New Year's Eve when suddenly the pub was full?
Yes.
Well,
yes.
Yeah. Like, what are they?
It's so true.
I think it's like at the end of I don't know. It's not quite at the end, but in Heart of Darkness, when the character who's seen all this horror in the jungle comes back to the real world and looks at everyone in a sort of a you don't know what life's about kind of a way. I suppose that it must be like that for Terry.
Very much so.
Tall as well, very tall.
Is he?
He's very tall.
He's a long white.
And he was before. He was before his time with the hipster beard.
Yeah, he was. Well, he was before his time with self-isolation. Actually, not so much of the self. Yeah. Quite low on the self, but certainly big on the isolation.
I
he's an inspiration.
If you had seen a story, this might well have come up in in your reading of the Catholic news sites this week, there's been quite a few online fails with people suddenly having to do workplace meetings from home using Zoom and Facebook Live and whatnot. And one of those online fails was when an Italian priest activated a video filter when he was live streaming a mass on Facebook.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Al, are you referring to Father Paolo Longo at the Church of San Pietro et San Benedetto?
Sounds like I might be.
He is my favourite man ever. I'm obsessed by him.
To be honest, had it been a Church of England vicar, I would have suspected he'd put that filter on deliberately in order to appeal to open inverted commas young people. Close inverted commas.
Yeah, do they go a bit? I want to talk to you about a little fella named Jesus.
I saw a local news story with one who had a ventriloquist dummy doing part of the sermon, and you wouldn't get that in the Catholic Church. You used to get those biker vicars as well who wore leather jackets.
Oh right.
Well, he did say in his defence, Frank, he said the person who keeps drawing on my face obviously likes to make jokes, which made him sound like a bit of a git, and I kind of warmed to him.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good line from him.
Frank Skinner on Absolute Radio.
I went to the last couple of... we were talking about the Catholic priest in the last link. I went to the last 2 available masses before masses stopped, and still went up to the altar and took communion, and taking the communion from another human being's hands. It felt like being on an Alton Towers ride. I felt like some sort of crazy adrenaline junkie.
It's risky.
I want to check out one of your Catholic newspapers, because I want to know if they have like the equivalent of a 3 a.m. section. Do they have like Spotted, Archbishop of Canterbury, or do they have like a gossip page?
They have like, current news. That's about as close. There's a diary page, but there isn't any the Holy Trinity girls or anything like that.
I was wondering if there was a little bit of accidentally on purpose with this priest and the funny hat and the technology mistake, because I think priests might be seeing that their job is up for grabs, because now that we're all doing the self-isolation thing, haven't the Catholic Church said that people can do confessions from home? And maybe priests have realised, hang on, God can work from home. We're like a middleman here, and we're becoming a bit unnecessary.
It's the difference between watching football live on Sky and actually going to the games.
Right.
Oh, I see. Don't do the confessions to your partners, though. That's TMI, if ever I heard it.
Why, the very idea of it.
What I liked about...
I can't cope with that much penance.
What I liked about Father Paolo, do I address him as Father, Frank? Is that respectful?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So he was live streaming his mass, which is a nice idea, I think, via Facebook Live. But it was the choice of filters that he'd unintentionally activated, because he had on his purple stole, he had his gear on, but it was the fact that it was a digital robot helmet that came up first, followed by comedy sunglasses, cartoon eyes, and then weights.
Brilliant.
And it did occur to me, though, I don't know, it was very watch me. Do you know what I mean? I think I would tune into that, to be honest.
Well, this proves my point.
I think it's the equivalent of looking over someone's shoulder to see what books they've got, though, is that you don't notice them enough. I felt for him a bit. It could happen to anyone. I didn't know such filters existed. I'll be straight with you. It's been a tremendous education, this whole thing, for me. It reminds me, do you remember when we had Boy George on the show in the day when we used to have regular guests, and he'd just come out of prison? And he said prison was brilliant because he said, I read all the books I was going to read. I had a chance to really think about my life. That's why I'm hoping to come out of self-isolation with that kind of awareness, maybe without the big hats.
Nice.
And the black neck. Never liked the black neck on George.
No.
I mean, it was flattering, but
it's very
a long
thinning.
way to go.
It's a lovely idea in principle, George, but yeah, it's
I used to have a landlady.
With the sheets, the black neck, I find when you paint on
yeah,
I
had a landlady who used to powder heftily, and the fur collar on her coat was absolutely thick with face powder. I mean, it was, George must have that. He must have some dirty shirts. That's what I think.
Frank Skinner on
Absolute Radio.
It's not just priests that have been blighted by technology problems. There was a woman who was on a conference call from home, and her boss was using some funny filter and accidentally turned herself into a potato, and the woman who was on the call has put it up on Twitter.
I like that you use the word blighted before.
Did I use the word
potato?
blighted?
Fantastic. Sort of retrospective punning going on here, Rob.
Thank you. But she sort of humiliated her boss online, and I was thinking, this is quite risky business, because if she then gets sacked for humiliating her boss, is that going to become like
another pun on potatoes?
Is it going to become an HR issue?
Well,
I mean, if you got sacked for humiliating your boss, I know 2 people who'd be out of a job, Alan.
I read this story, and the boss is called Lisette Ocampo. And
one of my parents' friends worked in the theatre.
What she's done is she's over-embraced her own humiliation.
Oh, has she?
So, yes, she said she started a Twitter account in order to discuss this embarrassing thing that had happened to her. Of course, it's no longer embarrassing once someone embraces it.
Yeah.
And one of the things she said was that everything, this is an actual quote from Lisette Ocampo, everything about the potato story is hilarious.
Right.
You don't say that about things when you're the sort of chomp.
The trouble with Ocampo, not De Campo, who does some very fine work in another area, Gino De Campo, but Ocampo, I find she's not grasping the basic, as you say, the basic comedy rule. I think it was Peter Sellers who said what makes Clouseau so funny is that he takes himself so seriously. Ocampo hasn't got
some of the things, can I just say, she's already said as advice to the people looking at her Twitter feed, stay planted at home. That's one of her jokes. And also, I am the potato boss.
Right.
Okay.
Oh.
Are we suggesting that perhaps Ocampo might wear the equivalent of the comedy socks, the Simpson socks, in the office?
I think as a boss, she might be a chip off the old block, that kind of thing.
How? Frank's not even dignifying that with a response.
Yes, I struggled with that. You see, I went to block. I went to the last word, and
weirdly, the one pun I've done on purpose, Frank didn't spot, and all the accidental ones he jumped on.
She also then, in the midst of all this lightheartedness, Lisette Ocampo.
You're giving him the right roasting, Al.
Yeah. She says, she talks about their company, and she says, our work is to fight for progressive values, not easy during the Trump administration. I thought, not now, Lisette.
Yes.
Not now. Spod face. Stay out of here. I thought it was some sort of Duke of Edinburgh filter she'd put on when I first saw it.
I think you saw her eyes
Better
and
get
lips.
those jokes in.
Frank Skinner.
Frank Skinner.
Absolute Radio.
The Spod filter. You remember that band?
Yeah.
Yes.
They. It reminded
I like their
me.
early stuff.
Yeah, there was a comic, a cartoon character called Sam Spoddykins. Ring any bells?
Never heard of him.
No,
It was Go on.
I just say, I remember the store Spud you like. I think we told you recently, the restaurant. I think you only learned recently that it had closed down.
No, I thought it had closed down.
Oh, that was
and then
it.
we got some people get in touch to say that like things like there's one in Wigan.
You're right.
And, and stuff like that. I mean,
anyway, back to Spuddykins.
It may have gone in the interim.
Yeah,
but
I don't know if
Sam
it's gonna
Spuddykins was in a when I used to drink every night in public houses. You remember public houses?
Yeah.
There was the Salvation Army used to come round on Friday nights with their periodical. And it wasn't the Watchtower. Is the Watchtower? Is that the?
That's the Jehovah's, I believe.
Jehovah's.
Oh, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, they had their Salvation Army magazine, and it had a cartoon strip in it called Sam Spuddykins. It was a talking potato who imparted moral wisdom. And in the days when there was always people going around pubs, and there was an Irish guy who used to come in and collect for a local hospice, and my friend called him Irwin, and we always called him Irwin. We called him Irwin to his face. How are you, Irwin? And it turned out that my friend only called him Irwin because when people put money in his tin, he used to say many tanks. And Irwin was Rommel's first name. A German officer who had many tanks. And it completely became his name.
Although not what he's subsequently become most famous.
No, probably not. But those people, now it's all drug dealers. But in the old days, there was all sorts of interesting people coming around pubs, plying their wares, including the Sam Spuddykins agent.
Well, there was a wonderful man, Frank, in Hampstead, in Eolde Hampstead Village, who, when me and my friend Jane, because she lived there when I was growing up, we'd wander up there, and he was Canadian. He wore a big hat and a scarf, and he'd say, "Hey, you folks like poetry?" And he would read you his poetry that he'd written, and he would frequent the hostelries, I believe, as well.
I'm guessing.
And read poems.
I believe so.
I have no evidence on this, but was the poetry really bad?
I'm going to take the fifth on that.
All my instincts say that it will be.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, a lot of great poetry has come from underneath a big hat. I mean, Alfred Lord Tennyson wore a few whoppers in the millinery department.
Do poets like hats, do they?
Oh, well, they used to. Traditionally, they do.
Dame Edith Sitwell, she loved a hat, Frank.
Yeah. Carol Ann Duffy may be a hard hat. I can't see her in anything floral.
I think the limerick writers like hat because it's an easy rhyme, innit?
Little tip there. Any limerick writers listening?
I mean, you
never know, do you, what you're going to pick up on this show?
Cats, bats.
Yeah, I think we should leave all the possible rhymes for hat. While we're still operational.
Oh, you don't want to continue?
No. I feel it getting closer.
Frank Skinner.
Absolute Radio.
So I know there's not a lot of people out there in the actual outside world, but people from other homes, have we heard from them?
We have a bit. We have a bit. I have a message here. Morning all. I hope you're keeping safe and well. I wanted to inform you, as I know how Frank feels about people having that this website has attributed a quote which is included in one of Frank's classic anecdotes to Frank himself. I forget who the original quote belongs to, but Frank never neglects to correctly attribute it when he tells the tale.
Indeed. I don't know what it is, but yeah. It's
Frank Skinner quotes, and number 2 is, you can spend your whole life trying to be popular, but at the end of the day, the size of the crowd at your funeral will be largely dictated by the weather. Now, you always quote who that is, but I don't know who it is.
Well, I can't quote him by name. It was an American football coach who was interviewed, and the interviewer said, "You're not very popular at the moment, are you?" And that was what he said. I'll be honest with you, I've improved what he said grammatically.
You have.
I don't think he would have said determined. But it's very much his thing, and I thought it was I love the quote, but no, I've never claimed it to be mine.
Well, in your book, I'm about to tell you what you wrote in your book here.
Please do, I'm 63.
In your autobiography, well, it's one of my most thumbed volumes, and I remember the exact passage, and you do say, this was said by an American. It was like a baseball, a sort of American football coach.
I think he was NFL, as I recall.
Yes, but I did quote you in my book. I used that quote, and I attributed it to you.
Oh, did
Perhaps
you?
Yes, I'm afraid I may have.
But isn't this what often happens? When you look up I'm not saying this is a famous quote, but when you look up a famous quote, it often says, it's often attributed to blah, blah, but it was originally... Yes. And I think what happens is that people, not necessarily nick it, I think they quote somebody, and whoever quotes them can't be bothered with the introduction, so they just do that.
Indeed.
Glad we've sorted that out.
Apparently, a lot of the things that we think are funny things Oscar Wilde said, Americans think are funny things that Dorothy Parker said.
Well, there you go. And a lot of people think that Winston Churchill invented the phrase black dog to describe depression. But Samuel Johnson used that same phrase for depression in the 18th century. Absolute Radio here. Where
Winston Churchill did come up with the phrase power nap, apparently.
Look, I don't want you to fall out over Churchill and Johnson again. This happens all the time. Rowing in the pub over Winston Churchill and Samuel Johnson.
This is what happens when Englishmen get together. They always argue about this thing.
I had some replies to my pictures.
Did you?
Yeah.
What pictures?
Well, we put pictures up last week, you may recall.
Your kitchen
Someone said
splashback.
my splashback was looking immaculate because I've got tiles with my copper pans.
Oh, and that's what a splashback is.
Yeah.
What on earth did you think it was?
Well, never you mind. I thought it was something to do with smoking marijuana. What was that thing called when you blow back down someone's...
A blowback.
Is that a splashback? Blowback.
Yeah.
Blowback, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, you remember that film Blowback Mountain? Big stoner movie.
Stoner movie.
I love a stoner movie. I'm not a stoner myself, but Pineapple Express, which I think is currently on Sky Cinema, check it out. I once watched it on a transatlantic flight, and Adrian Chiles, the popular presenter, came over to me mid-film and said to mate, and I took my headphones off. I said, what? He said, everyone's staring at you, mate. You're laughing too much. I said, well, they shouldn't have comedy films on. You're talking about, but it's a brilliant movie, mate. Get off me.
Frank Skinner on Absolute Radio.
This is Frank Skinner on Absolute Radio with Emily Dean and Alan Cochrane. We're not live, so don't text us. But you can follow us at Frank on the Radio on Twitter and Instagram, or you can email us via the Absolute Radio website. You remember that old favourite? And free on the website.
Talking of old favourites, Frank, I would like to... I'd like to have a discussion about Sir David Attenborough, SDA, because I know I'm actually quite a fan of his. I know you have mixed emotions, really, regarding David, don't you?
Do you? Me too.
Yeah, I don't like that thing of him letting lions creep up on impalas and not saying anything about it. I mean, if I did that in my personal life, if I was in the jungle and I did that, I'd feel bad about it. If I then filmed it and sent it out to loads of people, I'd feel ghoulish.
Right.
Well, I think it's also because that's your nightmare kind of film, isn't it? You know, you hate the sort of person rifling through the drawer when the torch is outside and the security guard's coming in. It's a similar feeling of dread, I imagine.
Yeah, but just what's wrong with... Look out! That's surely is...
Maybe he thinks the animals
response.
don't. Maybe he thinks the animals that are in peril don't speak English, and that they will understand.
I know he's a great man and all that, David Attenborough, blah blah. But there must be some part of him when he sees the lion creeping up on the impala. There must be some part of him thinking this will be great television when it tears it apart.
Do you think when the penguin doesn't make it up? Oh,
yeah.
This one was not so lucky.
Someone will text in and, or whatever they do, email in and say, you don't get impalas in the same place as lions or something like that. But I'm using I'm using impala as a for instance.
Yeah.
Why don't you like him, Al? Is it because he's a bit neggy about Trump?
And I'm a keen Trump supporter, as you know. No, I just have mixed feelings about him. I think.
Do you?
Yeah, well, I have mixed feelings about most people that are in the public eye when they say stuff. You know, when they talk, I think, oh, you're actually a bit silly, aren't you?
Fair enough.
So what's been his thing? This it's the Lost thing, isn't it?
He's talking about Lost. He's been sort of lamenting the end of getting lost, essentially. And he was asked this week, he did an interview for Time Out, and he said, children and teenagers will never know the true freedom because smartphones have essentially wiped out the problem of losing your way. Mm-hmm. But what was brilliant was he used what I would call a not particularly relatable example. He said it's like when I was in Indonesia in 1955, sailing on a small boat between islands. No one knew where we were. And there were no mobile phones.
Have you ever watched those old black and white films of him in Indonesia in 1955? He's usually got his shirt off at every opportunity.
Right.
He's a real dashing English adventurer. And he's out there invariably capturing animals to take back to zoos. So he was
when you say have you ever watched
man.
them, can I just say yes? And let's leave it there.
I mean, I'm not anti David Attenborough, of course not. But when he says that people have got iPhones and blah, blah, if you just drive out of any major city centre in Britain, you will watch the process which I call 4G, 3G, GPRS, E, dotted line. That's what happens to your reception as soon as you get away from a major hub. So I think he must he's either got a brilliant phone or he hasn't been getting out much. I know none of us have, but I mean generally.
Frank Skinner. Absolute Radio.
So we were talking about Sir David Attenborough.
Yeah, I found it a bit confusing, his message that young people are never going to experience freedom because they've all got an iPhone, and so therefore they'll never get lost. He seems to equate being lost with freedom, which, I mean, I've been lost a few times in my life, but I never think, oh, this is really liberating, not knowing where I am in the world.
I mean, I got lost in a car park once, and do you want to know what my response was? Ah!
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't find it liberating, trust me.
No, it's not.
This last 2 weeks is the longest I've been without getting lost, perhaps in my lifetime, because I haven't been out. As you know, we walk to the same restaurant after the radio show every week, and I still take the wrong turn if I'm leading. I mean, I have a clinical issue with getting lost. So he's wrong. He's wrong there.
Also, as a senior
if an interviewer,
gentleman.
if an interviewer asked Frank, when did you lot get lost? I mean, they would actually have to rephrase that question to, when did you lot successfully manage to find your way somewhere? That's how often you get lost. Sorry, Al.
You see, I thought public figures were shot down in flames now if they said sweeping statements which didn't include minorities. And I am one of the getting lost a lot minority. And I don't see why Sir David Attenborough isn't being dragged over the coals for oppressing me.
I did notice something, though, boys, which I would like to point out to you, which was I read the article in question and how it occurred during the interview, which was in person. I just wonder if this has been lost in translation, because the interviewer said before leaving, I asked him if there was something he experienced as a child that he wishes teenagers could have today. Getting lost, he says, and off Attenborough goes.
Oh.
Are you sure he wasn't telling him to get lost? And he just missed the end of it.
Lost.
Well, this is what I think.
Yes.
I think he hated the interviewer. He was getting lost.
It's just an old school put down. Get lost.
Well, Alan, it's just weird that it was the last sentence of the last words of the whole interview were getting lost.
Yeah.
I think he was telling him to,
He started, at the end, he started going on about what the damage that human beings have done to the planet, I think.
Oh, that doesn't sound like him.
Yeah. Not now, David.
Yes, it does. It sounds exactly like him.
I'm sure he's a great man.
The thing is, though, I don't know how you feel about this, Al, but I'm a fan of a maze. As you know, I love Hampton Court.
Oh,
and it's kind of my home from home. I go there whenever I can. Do people use smartphones in mazes now?
Oh, that is a good question.
To get their way out, that would be right up there with the pub quiz smartphone user.
Yeah. 2 minutes on Google Maps and you're out.
But would it actually show a maze? If you wouldn't it just tell you to go straight towards the exit and not acknowledge the hedgerow?
Going over to our transport correspondent, Alan Cochrane.
I don't know if it detects hedgerow.
Oh, on the subject of me being the transport correspondent, before the lockdown, I had quite an embarrassing incident after one of the last gigs I did before all this kicked off. I was driving out of Liverpool late at night, very tired, and it was raining a little
already.
bit. And I was a bit confused.
It's not the leaving of Liverpool. Go on.
I got a bit confused as to, there's sort of road markings and then there's marks on the road where cars have sort of worn a line or oiled a light. And I drove so badly, the police pulled me over thinking I was drunk. I
haven't seen these dotted lines that other motorists have accidentally.
It was just a bit confusing. And then he said to me, what went on back there then? And I said, I just got confused with the layout of the road. And he said, have you been drinking tonight, sir? I said, I haven't had a drink for 5 years. Although I'd told my jokes about drinking that night.
Which is, I'm afraid, exactly what a drunk would say.
I didn't tell him that. But yeah, they pulled me over and wanted to check. That's how bad my driving is, even though I'm the motoring correspondent on this show. I give the impression of being intoxicated.
Well, perhaps those people from the 70s who say, I drive better after I've had a drink, were actually spot on.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Don't do it, by the way.
Frank Skinner on Absolute Radio.
Before that, I did refer to people drinking and driving in the 70s. Can I say that it's very bad? And Absolute Radio has quite a strong policy on it. Mm-hmm. I think they're anti, generally. Yeah. But I was listening
can I also say,
day.
not just Absolute Radio. They're not swimming against the tide here.
I listened. I listened to In the Summertime by Mongo Jerry the other day.
Yes.
It's from the 70s. It's a great track. It reminds me of all those beautiful summers of yesteryear. But
can you remind us, Frank, of how it goes, please?
It goes, in the summertime when the weather is high, you can reach right away and touch the sky. Ray Dorsey.
You got women.
Vocals.
You got women. It's horrible.
Well, that was the first thing, because he said, you got women on my mind. Oh, I know. I think it's I got women on my mind. I don't think you can say that anymore, Ray. And then he says, have a drink, have a drive, go see what you can find. And I thought, this is getting worse and worse. It's like I had a packet of Love Hearts this week, and they included one that said hug me and one that said kiss me. And I thought, these are going to have to be made illegal in the current situation.
Well, they're going to have to update the Love Hearts to say consensual hugs.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think there's any hugs allowed now.
I look forward to a future where
consensual is.
Love Hearts just say, now wash your hands.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be, that's a lot of my love life. Did you read about the on this show many years ago, we talked with some enthusiasm about a gorilla at London Zoo.
Kombucha?
That managed to get into a... Yeah, he got into a... You try it.
Ow!
You just try
That's
it,
such
mate.
instant recall.
Kombucha, yeah. He didn't escape. It suggested he'd escape. He got into an adjoining room to his cell and drank 5 litres of undiluted Ribena.
Yes.
Well, it was blackcurrant squash, which makes me think it was snide Ribena.
Yeah.
Like he had Costco Ribena.
They're not going to give the old grillies. They're not going to get. They're not going to get proper Ribena, are they? It'd be my mum's Ribena. Be good enough for them.
I think it was for human consumption, wasn't it? Wasn't he in the cafe bit?
Oh, I thought he'd managed to get into his own store. Kombucha.
Oh, I see. The supplies.
I'd be very surprised if they give them blackcurrant cordial.
Well, it wouldn't. Well, he had 5 litres, though.
To be fair, it's administered out of a power hose.
It'd make his fur very sticky.
Oh, and he's
Can you imagine kombucha? What's his name? Kombucha?
Kombucha.
Kombucha.
Is it kombucha?
I think so.
Kombucha. Should we say kombucha?
Yeah, all right.
Can you
Let's call the
imagine
whole
this?
thing.
Can you imagine the state of that fur? The matted arms and it'd be like
Oh, yeah.
Richard Keys.
You're
after the
assuming
Ribena.
that he spilt any of it. He might have knocked it. I imagine he took them a bit like eating lockets, that they were in individual cartons, and he just swallowed them wholesale.
He
I
got
mean, they do
really
hang
strung
around.
out. What
He
happened?
did.
He got very strung out, and I think he got a bit silly. He got aggressive and overexcited.
Well, he had a
didn't
sugar rush. And it took 3 keepers an hour to get him off the ceiling.
Frank Skinner. Frank Skinner.
Absolute Radio.
Absolute Radio.
We were talking about the Ribena Gosling Simeon kombucha in the last link. What I was moving towards was a story in the papers recently about a bunch of elephants
Yes.
that got really drunk.
14 of them, Frank.
Well, there was a picture of 2 of them, like properly flat out on the floor. Do they sleep when they sleep? Elephants. I can't remember ever seeing an elephant sort of lying on the floor before. Are they like horses in that they sleep standing up?
Oh, do they?
Well, you see, this is when we need our readers. But
Yeah,
you know what?
yeah.
I'm not going to Google, and I'd love our readers to tell us, please, in time for next week.
Do they
But-
lie down? Can you picture in your mind, apart from these 2 drunks, can you picture an elephant lying down?
Yeah, but I don't want you to go into my personal life, thank you. But
In fact, I think I'll have seen just about everything when I see an elephant lie. No, I don't think they do. I think they sleep standing up.
I suspect you're right. What, they close the eye, like the giraffe, I imagine, does similarly. Does it?
Well,
the giraffe.
do you remember Geoffrey the giraffe?
Was he on
Jeffrey the
Rainbow?
giraffe.
Geoffrey
Oh
the
no,
giraffe.
was he a London Zoo favourite?
He fell. He fell to his knees.
Oh God.
Couldn't get him back up again. And the process, I think, of trying to raise Geoffrey, I think, was too much for his delicate constitution, and he passed.
Oh.
Absolute Radio, where real wildlife matters. So, I think... Anyways, but these ones were properly flat out on the floor, completely drunk.
Smashed.
And of course-
Blotto.
They
The main problem is that elephants, if when they get drunk, they can still remember everything.
Very good.
Oh yeah. Oh, lovely, Frank. Lovely.
Or do you think
That's why they're terrible friends to have, isn't it? You don't want these people,
yeah.
spies. Imagine if the gorillas won't have them. I mean, can you imagine? You should have seen the state you were in last night, kombucha. Oh my God.
Kombucha. What are you up to?
Do you think it's the other way around? Do you think actually all elephants have just got such good memories that they're drinking to forget? They're just attempting to smash up those grey cells.
I don't understand why they drank. It was corn wine, wasn't it?
Yes, they
This was
drank
in
30
China, I
litres
should
of
say.
corn wine, and they passed out in the tea plantation. But I believe they were taking advantage of the fact that it's, the workers on the farm were currently self-isolating, so it was unmanned.
Oh, is that what it is?
Or unpersoned.
But when you say taking advantage, are you suggesting that there are some people who actually drink alcohol for the taste? I mean, do they?
Yes, because they drink it.
They couldn't have known that it got them drunk, could they?
Well, I believe elephants have form on the alcohol front. They eat golden berries, I believe, until they get drunk.
Yeah, I still can't work out whether the elephants knew this stuff would make them drunk. So, what do elephants know? You can tell us on Twitter, Instagram, and email.
Frank Skinner on Absolute Radio.
So, here's a question which you may or may not know the answer to. Is there such a thing? When you hear people talk about zebras or mules and they say, they're part of the horse family, or tigers and ocelots, they'll say they're one of the... Is there such a thing as the elephant family? Are there other animals who are part of that?
Lovely question. Are they just mammals then? But I know what you mean. What is their subdivision?
And
yes, what is their
mammals.
subdivision?
Do you think there's a whole load missing in the middle? That we've only got elephant and mouse at far ends of the spectrum.
That's why they're frightened of each other.
Yeah, exactly.
There's
They can't cope with that big an edit. Nobody likes a jump cut.
Exactly.
Can you think of anything else in that family?
Hippo. Surely a hippo is some sort of relative of an elephant.
No, nowhere near.
Think really?
Tapir. What about the tapir?
Oh, you're good on your animals.
Well, I had a tapir. There used to be collector's cards in tea, packets of tea when I was a kid, Brook Bond tea, and that there was something like Animals of the World, and I had a tapir in that, and I remember I'd never heard of it before. Strange, got a nose like a bottle opener.
Yes.
As I think David Attenborough once said.
I'd like to know where they get this reputation for memory, the elephants. How is anyone testing that?
I know, it's... I wouldn't want to put a lot of money on it.
Also, is that entirely accurate? Because one thing they apparently do is they leave a mark. They leave their scent, the elephants.
They certainly do.
When they found alcohol...
overlap.
When they found alcohol, so they know to return to it, they will leave scent there.
Oh.
It is very similar to men.
Did they leave a pair of trainers hanging on the telegraph wire? Is that them?
Well, no, but it is. Go on. So,
when I was a kid, people used to say if you got drunk, you saw pink elephants. Are you aware of that?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
No, I've never heard that.
It was. I actually saw spiders crawling on the ceiling, which was less colourful and more terrifying.
Oh,
but
dear.
I don't think you were supposed to go.
Dream.
You weren't supposed to go and do that sort of close research. But and also people used to say, "Oh, he got a bit elephants last night." You know that like elephant's trunk is rhyming slang for drunk.
Oh, is that right?
It's all been brought together in this story like a fabulous cluster.
Fair play to the Cockneys. I love rhyming slang.
The thing is, the elephants, they do have the metabolisms to cope with it, I find. A bit like sort of people in theatre in the 70s. They've just developed, they've evolved to cope.
Yeah. Also, I didn't know there was such a thing as corn wine. It could get rice wine as well. It makes me think the grape manufacturers have been leading us up the garden after their exclusive powers. You can make wine out of anything.
Good point.
Anyway, on that note, I'm sure there'll be a lot of home brewing going on during the current crisis. God,
not a Frank's, though, can we say?
That must be a boom industry. Okay, so there you have it. Sarah Champion is up next, so listen to her. I'm sure she's got a lovely linen basket. She'll be hunched over. And you know what? If the good Lord spares us and the creeks don't rise, we will be back again this time next week. Now stop in.
This is Frank Skinner. This
Absolute Radio.